Support for I Am Salt Lake comes from KRCL 90.9, amplifying community voices since 1979. This listener-supported music discovery station covers everything from reggae and punk rock to local grassroots activism. Listen today at 90.9 FM or online at krcl.org.
This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Market Source Real Estate and CBD Medic. We're going to be telling you more about them throughout this episode.
And I want to personally welcome you out today to episode 401. Yes, 401 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield.
And my name's Chrissy Hollifield.
So in case you were not aware, September 30th is International Podcast Day. Seems like there's a day for everything nowadays, right, Chrissy?
Which I'm totally down with. I think it's great.
Well, I'm down with International Podcast Day, and hopefully everybody is celebrating accordingly by listening to a boatload of podcasts, or telling your friends about podcasts, or maybe you're wearing your favorite podcast t-shirt. But yeah, I think this is like the 4th annual International Podcast Day, or 5th annual.
Maybe I think so.
It's been going for a little while.
It's pretty cool.
If this is your first time listening to this podcast, maybe a friend told you about it, or maybe you just stumbled upon it doing a Google search. If you're asking yourself, what is this podcast all about? Let me tell you really quickly. We talk to musicians, authors, business owners, restaurant owners, breweries, distilleries, really anyone that might have a cool story to share from Salt Lake City. Hey, who's on the podcast today, Chrissy?
Today on the podcast, we have an awesome conversation with Steph and Molly, 2 strippers from Trails Gentlemen's Club from right here in Salt Lake City. We found out what got them interested in becoming strippers, what it's like for them working at Trails, why they love working in the industry, and so much more. We're going to get into that conversation here in just a moment.
Before we get into this conversation, we want to tell you about one of our awesome sponsors, Market Source Real Estate. Remember, every time you support one of our sponsors, you are supporting this podcast. Hey, if you love the charm and you love the character of old homes, you really need to contact our friends Monique and Jeremy at Market Source Real Estate. They actually helped us find our home, the home that we're recording this podcast in right now.
And for the last 18 years, they have been specializing in helping people buy and sell homes in Sugar House and the greater Salt Lake area.
With a background of flipping houses and owning almost 24 homes themselves, they really know all the ins and outs of older homes.
And if you're looking to sell your home, Market Source Real Estate specializes in helping sellers update or repair their homes to increase their value and help make sellers more money.
If you're looking to buy an old home, they know what to look for in older homes so you don't end up buying a money pit. You can find all of their info right there on their website, thinksaltlakecity.com, or just give them a call, 801-810-6773. Again, their website, thinksaltlakecity.com or 801-810-6773. And many thanks to Market Source Real Estate for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Let's get into that conversation that we had with Steph and Molly from Trails when they came, sat down with us to share their story. This is good. Enjoy. Where's home for you, Steph? Let's start over here with you.
So I grew up in West Jordan, just out in the suburbs, but now I live in downtown Salt Lake City.
So born and raised your whole life?
Pretty much. I was born in Pennsylvania, but I've been here since I was 2, so all of my life that I can remember.
Where in Pennsylvania?
I know I was born at the Bryn Mawr Hospital, and that's all I really know.
I spent a little bit of time in Pennsylvania, so that's why. And what about you, Molly? Where's home for you?
I moved here when I was 10 from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, and just been here ever since?
Been here ever since. Traveled a lot, but haven't moved anywhere.
Is exotic dancer the proper term to use, or what is the proper term here? I want to be proper here.
I don't think so. Sorry.
I mean, no.
I prefer enthusiast, which is striptease performer. But I'm just kidding. You can just call me stripper.
A stripper is fine.
But like, I think a lot of people like exotic dancer. I feel like my family, if I ever talk about it, prefer that I not call myself a stripper. But the most pretentious term is ecdysiast.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. I just found it online once, and I looked up the meaning, and it said striptease performer. And I was sometimes when I'm feeling like
just extra sassy and extra like
fancy.
But I don't mind stripper. I know there's girls that do mind being called stripper, and see that as a derogatory thing. I feel like just like a lot of words like bitch or slut or something, I feel like I've wanted to reclaim it and be like, no, that's a great thing. Being stripper is great. And it doesn't mean anything bad to me. What about you, Steph?
I feel the same way. I think I mean, I'm a stripper. That's what I am. So I've never like taken any offense to being called a stripper. I feel like the most often that I hear people saying that is sometimes there's customers that come into the club and they're like, oh, you're not a stripper to me. You're an exotic dancer. And
people say that all the time.
I am a stripper, so
it's kind of cute. Like they're trying to let you know that they value you and respect you.
They know in some way that word has taken on a negative meaning and that they're trying to be respectful. So I think it is really nice when somebody does say that. But I'm like, no, it's totally fine. Like, I don't mind.
So how long have you both been doing what you do? How long have you both been stripping?
I've been stripping for 7 years.
7 years?
7 years.
Like full-time, part-time, I guess? Or how does that, do you work a 40-hour week?
Sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that has to be so physically draining.
Sometimes more, I feel like, for you.
Sometimes. Not like recently, like I haven't been working as much at the club, but for sure, like when I have like available time, when I'm not as busy with school, I can work a lot more, but I work probably about 20 to 30 hours a week at the club right now.
You put some time in.
Is that including managing or?
No.
Oh, do you actually help manage?
Oh, so yeah, I'm the dancer manager at Trails as well.
Oh,
Nice.
see, I didn't. Okay, and that was another thing. I didn't know if you wanted to get into where you're currently employed at. I mean, I guess why not, right? Trails. It's
Trails.
Not,
oh yeah, we hope to say that a lot. Please come to Trails.
Yeah. Okay. So no, and here's the thing, is I am truly grateful for this interview because I've wanted to get dancers on here, but it's been hard because it's like I don't want to be the creepy guy, right? Like,
hey, you want to come to my house?
Yeah, like, come to my house and record this
Hang
podcast.
out with me and my wife.
Well, I'm sure you've gotten.
You guys probably
and
never
the
get
time.
asked that.
Yeah.
So, did you say, Molly? Did you say how long you've been in the industry?
About 5 years.
About 5 years.
Yeah.
Did you both really get into it to get your way through school, right? It's funny. That's actually one of the people's questions in our Facebook group. It's the joke, right? Like, they're getting through med school.
It's a stereotype for sure. I actually started my older sister started before I did so that she could divorce her husband. So she had enough money to leave him. And then after she was doing it for about a year, she convinced me to start doing it. So I wasn't in school. I was just doing it.
Just to make money.
Yeah. And
then
now
you're like, the money's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not keep going? What about you, Molly?
Sorry, repeat the question.
Well, it was kind of a silly question. Like, did you really start stripping just to put your way through school?
Oh, so no. I went to school. I didn't finish. I did go through a divorce and I was like working 2 jobs and had a daughter and just was like, miserable. And with funny stories, I'd been doing pole for years. And then one of my friends made a joke and she was like, and I was like, I can't go to pole anymore. I can't afford it anymore. And she was like, I've heard people pay you to do this kind of thing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it like the clouds parted and I literally started stripping within a couple days and just loved it. And the money was great and didn't have to work these other jobs. Got to work part-time and make my own schedule. And I was like so happy. It was great.
So it's almost more empowering, it sounds like, for you.
So I think for a lot of people, I've heard there's a lot of stories. We talked to a lot of girls of like bad relationships or whatever was going on. And they felt like maybe dependent on the person they were with and he was abusive or whatever. And they just felt like there was no way out. And I think that's a really common story of like being able to empower themselves to be able to support themselves financially.
Do you remember what the first time for you, like, I mean, it's got to be hard. The very first time, get out, it's your first time working at Trails, I guess. I'm assuming
I started at a club in Ogden.
You started at a different club. I mean, what was your first time experience like?
I was just terrified. Like, I knew I wanted to do it. I'd been like practicing at home, but then, it was just terrifying. And I think the first 2 years, I feel like almost every single time I went on stage, I just was like, but then that also felt empowering because every time I did it, it felt like, wow, I do something that terrifies me every single day. And I feel like the biggest badass ever. Like,
and you just keep getting, what about you, Steph? I mean, do you remember the first time for you getting out there? Was it hard? I mean, I'm sure there was a bit of nervousness there, right?
Yeah. I feel like for me, the hardest and scariest part about starting stripping was actually just starting stripping. Cause like, if you're afraid of something and you've never done it before, literally everything you feel about it is what you've made up in your head about it. So when I actually did it and got on stage, it wasn't nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. And like, I was nervous for sure still, especially because I don't really know how to dance. I have never had any background in dance. I've always been kind of clumsy. So like it for sure made me nervous, but
I mean, I figured as much, but I mean, like, I know Chrissy, if you had to get up there, I mean, I'm sure you'd be terrified out of your mind.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
I would trip and fall on everybody. It would be ridiculous. There would be like a YouTube video of how bad it goes.
Oh, man.
I'm a huge klutz, so
yeah,
I can relate.
I think everyone has a different experience. Like my sister, when she started the first shift I took her to work, after we were done, she just bawled. And I was asking, like, well, why? Because I don't understand. And she was like, because it was so stressful. I felt like they're looking at me, they're judging my body. Like, it just was like, and she continued. She ended up liking it, and she's been doing it for a couple of years now. But like,
is your sister at Trails as well?
No, she dances in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. So, well, in a much better state, I guess that's probably a little more lenient when it comes to dancing. I guess I don't know.
Well, yeah, with the laws and regulations, but that's a whole
that's a whole thing.
Down.
Yeah. You were going to ask.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, this is actually something that I never really thought about before until we were talking to you guys. But do you think that stripping, like all the women who get into it, do you think that it really helps them love themselves more? And we all have a problem with like self-image, right? And like, because that would be my thing. I'd be like exactly like that. Oh, you're judging my body. Everyone's looking at me. Really paranoid. Do you think it helps you really embrace yourself and just love everything about yourself?
I do. For instance, like I have a pretty big butt, and that was never really been like a thing in Utah.
Guys,
I mean,
it
is
though.
lately, but I was always really insecure about it. I got teased in middle school and high school about it, and so I like felt really uncomfortable in my body. And when I started stripping, like everybody loved my butt, and it really like made me like appreciate my body and love my body a lot more.
So why do people say that? Like, why do people even say that, about like porn or anything in the adult industry? Oh, we're just objectifying women. And I don't know.
There's so many jobs where people are objectified that I'm just confused why we focus so much on this one.
I object my mailman, right? Like I worship him because he brings me mail. But I mean, it's silly. I just think it's ridiculous.
I think it's really how you choose to look at it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was going to say about the body image thing, though, that like for me, what I noticed and what helped me, because I actually had an eating disorder before I started dancing, and I never relapsed again after dancing. And part of that was I got to see these women with different shaped bodies, like large breasts, small breasts, thick women, thin women, and that were just talented and beautiful and like sexy. And I just, something about that like built this thing in me that it was like, I don't have to look a certain way. It's about like how you carry yourself in confidence and like knowing who you are. I don't know. It sounds kind of silly, but like.
No, it doesn't sound silly
not
at all. No, not at all.
I think that's actually, interestingly, a much more healthy view than the majority of us women see things. You know what I mean? Like we're all very societally driven to compete with whatever we see. And,
with these airbrushed things.
Yeah, exactly.
And
with Photoshop.
And I could see these beautiful women at this club I'd started at that like, I was like, she has cellulite. I have cellulite. And because I remember thinking like, I can't be a dancer. I have cellulite. You know what I mean? Like, but then I was like, no, actually you can just be super sexy and be fine with your body. And like, that's okay because most women have cellulite.
So we have a Facebook group, the I Am Salt Lake community, which I urge everybody to join. We try to get, some interaction, and occasionally I'll throw like who we're going to bring on the podcast, so on and so forth. And I mentioned that we're going to bring a couple of dancers on from Trails. If anybody had questions, we have a super fan, Brittany Hemingway, big fan of the podcast. She always has a ton of really rad questions. So I was just going to kind of go down the list here of some of her questions and a couple other questions that people have. And hopefully we can answer them if that works for you guys.
Do you want us to both answer them? Or
I mean,
go back and forth,
or I mean, feel free, whatever. Okay. If you both have some input, or one of you have input, whatever's easiest. I guess.
I'm a talker, so I always have input. Yeah, so I'm like, sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, do you just want us to take?
No, I mean, whatever the easiest happens for some of these questions, because they're all kind of worded a little differently. Her first question is common false assumptions about them as. Let's see, how does she word this? Common false assumptions about them as people and about the job. So I guess just false assumptions that people have about you and the job.
I have so many things to say.
Right, then take it away.
Okay, so about dancers, I think it's just like any industry where like a few bad seeds have like cultivated this reputation for an entire industry.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate. But then there's the good stereotypes of, oh, she's working away through school, which I guess isn't like necessarily good or a bad stereotype, but like that, we're all on drugs, that we're promiscuous, that we're, whatever. And just those things, like being in the industry as long as I have, and I've danced out of state and stuff, and have met a lot of people. I'm like, those are just so not true. Like these, or that they're like money hungry, like gold diggers, like none of those things from my experiences with the women I've worked with, like, are true at all. Like a lot of these women are working on degrees, completing degrees, like very loyal women to their boyfriends or to their husbands. Like, so there's that. And there's some stereotypes about like customers and stuff, like that they're these perverts that are, and it's like, no, like everybody goes to the strip club. Like, I'm not saying everybody, but like all types of people come into the strip club, and they're not perverts. They're people who like entertainment or just are lonely and want someone to talk to, or want to be in a bar scene with beautiful women, like, and so.
Hey, I've been there. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say.
What did you think?
Me too. We've all been there.
It's been
right?
years since I've been there. Probably, gosh, it's got to at least be 8 or 9, almost maybe even 10 years. I thought it was great. Here's the thing. I thought it was great because I was like, this is great. Instead of just going and having a beer at a boring old bar, why not go have a beer and have some entertainment, right? Grab some food, right? Burger or whatever. I can't remember all the food that was available at Trails at the time, but
interact with some attractive women.
Yeah. I didn't feel like it was just full of weirdos. There's weirdos at any bar you go to. So it doesn't really matter in my opinion.
Sure.
But, yeah, I don't know. Anything that you want to add to that, Steph? Or?
Those are probably what the same things I was going to touch on.
Sorry.
No,
You're fine.
That's fine. The next question here is what do they love about it and what do they dislike about it? So, if there's one or two things that come to mind, there's probably a lot of both that,
Well, I love it. Like the biggest reasons is the amount of money that I can make in the amount of time that I have to be at work, the flexibility that I have with my schedule. Like I'm able to do a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to do if I worked a 9-to-5 type job. And then like another thing that I really love about Trails is the type of relationships that I have with all of the other women that work there. It's a wonderful place, and we have amazing women that work there. And if I'm ever having like a bad day or a tough time, like I can go to work and I'm in a room with 15 of my best friends and feel better, have fun.
Yeah, I would super duper agree with everything that she said. Sorry, I wanted to touch a little bit on the Trails thing where we don't sell lap dances. It creates an environment where like we don't have to really compete with each other or out hustle each other quite as much. There's still some of that. But more, we try to work as a team to help everybody make money. And so a lot of the girls, like I've been at Trails for 4 years. You've been there
Like 6.5.
like 6.5 years. And we retain a lot of girls usually. And I took a break and I went and tried out a bunch of other clubs because I wanted to like see what else was out there. There just wasn't that family vibe that we have there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need it back. I have to be with these women who know me and get me and like.
Yeah.
But back to the question, which was
like, what do you love? What do you dislike?
I love to perform. So like I'm actually introverted. I like talking to people in like small groups. Yeah. I don't like big crowds and stuff. But like when it comes to performing, I love like a ton of people and I love to like put on a big show. And that just feels so fulfilling to me. And so I love that part of it. And I do feel just super empowered. I just feel like I'm a woman making money, doing kick-ass shit. Like, look at what I can do with my body. Like
I don't need a man to pay my bills, right? Like you can make the money.
I mean, we need some of them. That's part of why, like,
well, true. I guess.
That's what else I was going to say.
I guess you need the man to come in, right?
Well, other women too, possibly.
Well, what we're saying, well, not what we're saying, but what I've noticed, and we've talked about this before, is especially on the weekends, there's like a 50-50 gender between men and women.
Okay.
And that really shocked me. Like when I first started, I was like, what? And,
and a lot of couples like to go together.
Couples, groups of women, like quite a few females, more so than I would have expected. But anyways, the things I do like are those things, like she said, a lot of things she said. What else do I like about the flexibility, the money? The fact that I sometimes feel like I'm getting paid to exercise. I'm like, I still try to go to the gym, but like if I don't get to the gym, it's like, that's okay. I'm going to go get paid to exercise at work. Like it's fine. And then you can kind of eat kind of whatever you want. Like I see the girls back there were just mowing down fries and stuff. And like, you can't eat like that unless you have a job that you're just incredibly active at. So like, that's awesome. Like,
how many hours is like a typical shift?
About 7 hours.
Wow. So, but you're not
it varies
actually
club to club.
dancing for 7 hours straight,
No,
are you?
We dance on like a slower time. We dance for 6 minutes and then get down for a break and then come back up. But when it's busy, and when we used to do like 5 stages sometimes, so then you do 6 minutes on each stage.
Okay.
And that was exhausting, but that felt amazing to me because I'd just be sweating by the end and it just felt like, yeah.
You go home and I had a hell of a workout.
But I'd wake up and my hands would like be stiff because I do like pole work and rail work and stuff. And I'd wake up and my hands would be like, nope, we're done.
It's like mountain climber hands almost.
It's funny. People are always like, you should mountain climb. And I'm like, I never have done that. But they're like, you'd be good at it.
I actually have a quick question. Then we'll get back to Brittany's questions. Do you know how long has Trails been there? How long? Do you know how long Trails has been?
I know
around?
a long
Like,
time.
I think around 40 years.
Really? That long? I mean, 'cause
What?
That's what
I was going to say 20.
No,
Because I know
it's got to be
people-
longer than 20 years.
That is blowing my mind. And it used to be called
I think just Golden Trails.
Golden Trails, which I think
Yeah.
is so weird.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be like
Like it was like a
golden
like a water
showers
play.
or something.
Yeah, like some kind of.
No, because I was wondering like what kind of obstacles they faced here in Salt Lake, right? Like when they first
I'd love to
started.
know.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
Do
could
we even know
imagine.
any of the original people?
Yeah.
No, I think maybe
They have to still be around somewhere.
I
I'd be very interested.
don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think the best person to ask though would be Abby
Oh my gosh, yeah. How long? Because Abby's been there.
for a really long time.
She's a bartender there, and she's probably, I don't know how old she is.
Been around for no, I was just curious. It doesn't matter. I was just curious. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by CBD Medic. Remember, every time you support one of our sponsors, you are directly supporting this podcast. CBD Medic is a revolutionary line of topical pain and skincare medications developed to provide safe and lasting relief for you naturally. CBD Medic products are the result of rigorous scientific research and an extensive understanding of the role of natural oils, analgesic ingredients, and how our bodies react to these combinations. CBD Medic products combine THC-free hemp extract with pharmaceutical ingredients along with 100% natural, inessential oils such as jojoba oil and peppermint oil to create unique formulations for fast, effective, and safe relief. Their motto is advanced science powered by nature, and it is their mission to utilize the highest quality ingredients to create treatments that can safely and effectively help relieve sports-related joint and muscle pain, back and neck pain, foot pain, arthritis-related pain like stiffness and swelling, and muscle and joint pain. It can also help acne, blemishes, pimples, blackheads, and whiteheads, itchy, dry, flaky skin caused by eczema and psoriasis, irritated, itchy skin, and rash. You can visit their website, really easy here, cbd-medic.com, to check out all of their products. Listeners of this podcast, pay attention. Use the promo code podcast10 and you're going to save yourself 10% on all of your orders at cbd-medic.com. Again, that promo code podcast10, all one word. Use that code at checkout. You're going to save 10%. You're going to support the podcast and you are going to get some great products here from CBD Medic. All right. Many thanks to CBD Medic for their support of this podcast. Let's jump back into that conversation with Steph and Molly when they came and shared their story. Enjoy. Let's get back to these questions from Brittany here. She wants to know what's one of the funnest experiences that you've had at work.
It's funny because it's the same one I told on the other podcast because some of my favorite memories is like Steph coming in to tip and she does this trick where like, so you've been there, there's like a table and we're kind of high up on this stage kind of scenario, but she would like run and jump on the table and throw money like while she's midair. And like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like Michael Jordan shit. Like,
It's like superhero tipping.
but honestly, things like that, memories like that. I did do a charity party last year and that felt really cool because we donated all the tips. And that was like a weird special feeling. We're in the back, like sorting the money and all of us are like crying a little because we're like, that felt really good. But we all worked our asses off like all night to make nothing. And it just felt really cool. funnest or best or
I don't, however you want to interpret the question. And if there's no answer, it's fine too. I mean, I don't know if you have a fun experience that you want to share, Steph, or not. If you don't,
I can't think of anything. I feel like that's a question that always stumps me because like questions like that and like what's the craziest thing that's ever happened or weirdest thing, I'm like, I don't know. Like
nothing crazy.
We've had fun. I mean, I didn't go to the one before that, but like the Christmas party is usually fun because they close the club and we all hang out and drink and like we did karaoke and we like danced on the stage and it was just employees and like it was
strip for each other.
I fell asleep. Right? I wore a onesie that had a butt flap and my butt flap was open and it just was crazy. And then I got drunk and then I fell asleep in the booth and woke up at like 5 a.m. and I'm like, what happened?
The next question that Brittany asks here is, what are their plans for the next 5 to 10 years?
So I'm in school at the U right now. I'm doing strategic communications for my undergrad and I graduate next fall. And then I'm planning on taking the LSAT next summer and then hopefully going to law school. So that's my
long-term plan.
Yeah. So that's what I'll be doing.
What about you, Molly?
So I kind of have like two answers to this. Like one is like I've studied like film and screenwriting for a long time and have done like short films and like was really into that back in the day and like won some awards and stuff. And so that's ultimately what I'd like to do. And I still like, I did a music video last year that I produced and directed and like, I still want to pursue that, but my daughter's like 9 and there's this school I want to go to in Chicago. So I'm kind of just being patient that I'm like, I know that that's what I'm going to do, but it's going to take some time. But the side note of that is that there's kind of this word. Have you heard the word lifer? Lifer is a term for like a stripper that like does it till they can't anymore, right? And sometimes there's like this negative thing about it. And there was this dancer that I worked with that was like 49, and I think she's 50 by now. She was super hot. She was making crazy money. She would like bring her little dog on stage. And
here at Trails?
No.
Oh, okay.
This was when I, had my experiences and went and danced other places.
Yeah.
And I just thought she was so great and loved her so much. And she looked so happy. And I thought to myself that I was like, if I was a lifer, like I'd be okay with that. Like if I danced and like, as long as people still want to pay to see me without my clothes on.
Why not?
I feel okay with that. Like even if I got into other things or like whatever. And like I have other like side hustle things, like I want to get into real estate and just stuff like that. But like school's not for me. I've tried school and I'm just not someone who, I have like enough credits for like a degree, but I kept changing my major. And then I'm like, I don't really think I like doing school.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, school is not for me either. So
yeah, so you get me. But yeah, so sometimes I feel like I'm a lifer and I feel like I want to own that. Like I'm 34. I got into dancing much later than most women do. I was 29 when I started dancing. That's like, I feel like a little unheard of. And then I got my sister into dancing. She was almost 40 when she started dancing.
Oh, wow.
And she loves it. She loves the money and the freedom and stuff. And so, I don't know. I like this idea. I follow this burlesque dancer that's like she's in her 50s and she's huge. She performs all over the world. And I'm just like, yeah, I could totally see myself being that person.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. The next question, and if you don't have any answers, that's fine too. Best and worst coworker experiences. I don't know. She just threw a bunch of questions here. If you don't have an answer, I can edit it out, the question out if there's nothing.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it sounds like you like your coworkers,
I
so
do.
they don't,
We do. There's been problems. Like I was just saying to Steph today, like like Trails has a bit of a reputation of like the girls being mean, but the truth is it's not like that at all. I think it's usually a tactic for other clubs to keep their girls from going to Trails because, for example, I was at a club where they didn't treat me very well. And so part of their propaganda to me was like, you'll never make it at Trails. The girls will eat you alive. You won't do well there. You'll never, you know what I mean? Like this terrible toxic environment of like trying to make me feel like I'd never make it there. And when I did eventually go to Trails, I was like, it's not like that at all. Like everyone who was talking all that shit, like none of that's true. Like, yes, like once or twice a year, we might get into it. It's a very, very intimate environment.
I could imagine.
And it's practically like a family. And we have a lot of downtime where we are together and stressed out or whatever, or dealing with our own issues. And, but then it's always kind of blown over. There's been like this big thing and you're so mad. And then it's just like a family or just like any other workplace. You're like, okay, maybe that wasn't really a big deal. Actually, I really love them. And like, that was kind of dumb. And I'm sorry for my part and you're sorry for your part. And, let's move on with our lives. So
Very cool.
It's kind of just like any co-working environment. you
Yeah,
know?
it really is.
Next question here is, what do they wish everyone realized about the industry?
My first thing would be just that it's a job, because I was having this conversation with someone today where I just was saying, like, this is my job, and I like to compare it. And there's other comparisons where strippers are compared to therapists, because we talk to a lot of people. We end up talking about their problems a lot. Like, there's this with customers, and you end up really caring about them. But then sometimes they're offended when you're like, they're like, do you want to hang out after work, or can I get your phone number or something? And I'm like, your therapist really cares about you. They're really invested, and like, they want you to be happy and be better. Like, they care, but that doesn't mean that they want interactions with you outside the club. Like,
are you allowed to give your number though, if you want to give your number, or date customers at all?
you know,
Are you allowed
I met
to
a
do that?
boyfriend through the club, and I'm not saying it never happens. I think it's pretty discouraged.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? Like, where someone like me, that's my only social environment, really. And just like, you're not state coworkers or something. It's like, those are the people you're exposed to. And so that's your pool.
Yeah. No,
Totally.
So like, it happens, but what do you think? It's like discouraged to
Yeah, for sure.
hang out outside of work, or
Yeah.
to be in contact outside of work.
Right. And I think like the main reason for that is just because typically, like, if you see like a stripper, like, or sex worker in the club hanging out with somebody outside of the club, the way it looks like prostitution. And so it's highly discouraged for those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But
Next question here is, what laws do they like and what do they wish would change in relation to the job, obviously?
in Utah, the laws are pretty restrictive at the strip clubs. At our club, they serve alcohol. And so if they serve alcohol at a strip club in Utah, then we have to wear pasties. We have to wear special legal panties. And there's a 3-foot no contact law with customers, which means that there's no lap dances. And honestly, like, I really like that.
The security of
because it's not like, all I do is perform on stage. Like, that's what I do for my job. I don't have to go hustle people. I don't have to go sell them something for $300 where I just have to dance on top of them. Like, so I really like that our laws are so restrictive. I'm sure that a lot of men would like it if it were otherwise.
On that, you were mentioning pasties, and there's been a few people ask questions with the new topless law.
I know.
How is that going to affect
We're
the
still not
stripper industry?
legally allowed to.
But according to the
But I
law,
can go to the grocery
Chrissy
store
can go to
with
the
my top
grocery
off,
store
right?
with the top off, right?
Maybe that would be bad.
I mean, I don't know. That's what
I don't know. And they were talking about it earlier that, like,
Yeah.
what about the private property? I'm sure that whoever owns the property could probably say no, right?
Did you guys saw this newspaper article, right? Like, it was
saw
all over,
the-
like, on Facebook and stuff like that.
I wasn't sure
and-
it was real. I'm like, no, I don't.
No, I think
that's
it's
real.
I think it's real. I think a couple of ladies over there in Colorado, I guess, like, challenged the court systems or something, and
But is it real here then?
Utah, Nevada, Arizona, I don't know, like 5 states.
I'd like to read the full thing. Like, where is this acceptable? What places is it?
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot more detail that not all of us know. That would be really good to know.
I think the reason that this law is not going to affect you guys is for the same reason that, what was the movie Deadpool at Broovies? It's showing a movie with nudity
With
and
alcohol.
with alcohol present. And so I feel like that's the same conflict with you guys.
So then what?
is-
Women can't drink alcohol in public and be topless? Or
I see.
you
I
just
think
can't
it has to do
serve it with a liquor license.
And
I
so,
see.
because Southern Exposure is no alcohol, but they're full nude.
Yeah, but
right?
this law just barely passed.
Well, no, but I'm saying that I would
The
be
laws for the
surprised
strip
if this
clubs are
law
still in
covered
place. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
overrode any of the Utah.
Oh, sure.
laws.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, Utah laws, I don't know if either of you remember private clubs. I don't know if you even remember.
I do.
I used to. I was a manager for a long time at private clubs.
But all that did was we were able to figure out loopholes of certain
Yeah.
things. I mean, it's why
remember.
Utah was one of the last states to ban smoking inside
Customers
bars
paid
because
less then to get into clubs than they do now
Yeah.
because your private membership
Yeah.
covered you and your friends. And now everybody's paying $10.
Yeah.
So I think the private club was a good idea.
So actually, here's a question for both of you then, based off of the new topless law. Let's say, for example, you were able to be topless at trails, right? Because of the new law. Would you still be as comfortable dancing topless? Or have you
I wouldn't care.
that wouldn't bother you
No.
One time I came out without my pasties on by accident.
at trails?
And I took my top off, and my areolas are tattooed into hearts. Sorry about that. But they're pink hearts. And so the customer was looking at me and he goes, "Are those your nipples or is that a pasty?" And I was mortified. So it's weird because I think like if it was a club where you didn't wear pasties, I would feel totally fine. But because it is a club where you wear pasties, like it was really strangely mortifying. I like ran off stage, put my top back on, and like was just absolutely like totally mortified that like he had seen my nipples, which was weird. But only because I've been in that environment so long.
It seems like the customers, though, are quite far from you, though, on the dance. If I remember correctly, the last time I was at the trail. So, I mean, the fact, I guess they were yelling at you that your nipples were showing.
No, you can talk to people from 3 feet away. We're more than 3 feet away.
It's been a minute since I've been there. So, from my memory, it seemed like the dancers were further. You guys should come in. We'll buy you a beer.
Hey, free beer? All right, I'm in.
You had me at beer. Wait, what else is there? No, I'm just kidding. Let's see. The next question here from Brittany. She has what makes a good customer versus a bad customer other than the obvious tipping well and not being gross? So
those are pretty good ones.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of a lot of like bad things as customers. Like, for instance, like the kids who will like sit at the stage and like wave money around and ask us to do a trick. Like, I'm
$1.
not a show pony. So, like, I'm going to
dance for me.
Yeah. And they're like, show me your coolest trick. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm doing my coolest tricks. Like, what else do you want from me?
I'll literally have like just done a flip and some like drunk person will come up, girl or guy, and be like, do a trick for me. And I'm like,
did you just see what happened?
I flipped around a rail in my panties. Like, give me some credit.
So what makes a good customer then?
A good customer, in my opinion, would be someone who's respectful and has like really good conversations with me, a regular, someone who comes in fairly frequently, someone who buys me drinks because I have a quota of how many drinks I need to get each night.
Now, what do you mean by buy? Like you actually drink them?
We're not allowed to.
Yeah.
I mean, can I say this? We're not allowed to drink alcohol. So I tell the customer that because I don't want them to assume. Sometimes I think they want you to assume that you are drinking alcohol, but we're not legally allowed to do that. And so I tell them that, but that I also tell them I have to get 5 drinks a night. That's part of like my stage fee. And so I'll sit with customers and they'll buy me drinks.
I got you. I just
it's like Diet Coke.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
So someone who does that, someone who, can have like a real conversation with me about like things that are real, not like something superficial and shallow or whatever. And that tips me well and regularly and doesn't get like so drunk that like we can't talk anymore or he's not tipping me anymore or like, that would be like, that's my ideal. I feel like.
Is there like a standard tipping, like when you go to a restaurant, it's like 20%, 18, 20, 25% or something?
I have I told someone recently, which is not always what people do, just like in serving, not everybody tips 20%. But I said, if you're going to go to the club and if you're going to sit at the stage, you should be tipping every girl at least $10.
How often though?
I'm saying at a minimum.
Okay.
Of each girl that comes out for her 6 minutes, each person should be tipping her $10. That's what my opinion is. And then, so that way, let's say you stay an hour, you spend $100, but then also you don't have to sit at the stage all night. That's my opinion about if you're sitting at the stage. And I think that's the minimum. I think people, if they can afford it, should tip more depending on how much they like the girl, if they like the entertainment. If you're sitting away from the stage, but you're watching a lot, I think that number changes a little bit. Like you're not at the stage, but you're still paying all your attention to the stage. I still think you should be tipping the girl. Honestly, there's a lot of times where I'm just grateful you tip me anything. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes I'm making big bucks and sometimes I'm like, thank you for your $2 because I would have had $0 on my stage had you not put $2 on my stage. So it's a really bizarre kind of
And I'm sure you have the guys that come in that don't tip at all, right? They just sit there and you're just like, get the hell out of here.
Nope, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, sure, I'm sure you don't do that, but let's see. Next question. What would likely surprise people about their personal lives? So I guess, I don't know. Is there something that would surprise people about your personal lives or would you rather not?
I'm always in a relationship, I think, but I'm always really candid about it with customers. Like if we get into an intimate conversation, I don't always I don't want to immediately be like, oh, by the way, I have a boyfriend, because I want to be that girl, because I'm not assuming that you think that we're having this interaction because we're interested in one another.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you're intelligent enough to know that I'm here doing my job. And so I don't always lead with that, but I do usually tell them that. But I mean, yeah, I'm usually in a relationship. That's one of the things. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing for me to broadcast. I'm not.
Well, it's not a
really
bad thing,
in one
though.
right now,
I mean,
but
it's not a bad thing to say that you're in a, I mean, at least in my opinion, but
I think for the people that are going there for the right reasons, like it shouldn't matter that I have a boyfriend. Like,
That's what I'm curious about. I mean, not to interrupt
no,
that question,
you're
but
good.
is it fairly common for your clientele to start to feel like they've developed a relationship with you and that sometimes they expect more out of you?
and they
than-
do the same thing with therapists.
Yeah,
Like-
that's true.
Like people often
Yeah.
fall in love with their therapist because you're having this intimate, and then you add like an intimate, like sexual part to that.
Right.
And yeah, I think for sure. But most of the good customers, like we're talking about like a good customer, they're not
They get
delusional
it. They're
about
like,
that.
you're a human.
Yeah, you're a
You have
human
a
being.
life.
And we have built a relationship together. And I care about you and you care about me. And I want to hear what's going on in your life and you want to hear what's going on in my life. Like it's very genuine, you know, but they're also not like, yeah, I'm totally going to eventually date her and like she's going to go home with me, or like smart customers aren't thinking that way. Like
Right. What about you?
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Steph? Or like what would likely surprise people about your personal life?
Well, the
she's
fact
super
that you're going to go to
smart.
law school.
Yeah,
Hello. I mean, that's like, I don't want to do that. That's way too hard.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I feel like there probably is like a stereotype about strippers not being very intelligent.
Yeah. And I've seen girls even play that up.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're trying to read people and like what they want. And I've learned to just be myself and that's what works best. But I've watched some girls dumb themselves down a little bit to talk to people because they want to seem more approachable or like whatever. And so I don't necessarily think it's always that strippers are stupid. I think that they're catering to like what they think people want.
Right.
You know
They're
what's
not.
interesting about that though? I think that no matter what you're in, I think women, we tend to do that
Yeah, we think it's more attractive.
across the board.
Yeah, we think like
Yeah.
if I come across too intelligent, you're not going to like me.
Right, right. Like we have to be really careful and find that balance of like, we don't think we're smarter than you, but you know, we're
Yeah.
not totally stupid. And it's
Yeah.
this weird
It's a
balancing
dance.
act that we're constantly doing with people.
Molly, you were mentioning a boyfriend relationship. Have you ever had to, like, say you've been on a date with a guy and they might not know what you did? I mean,
I usually lead with that.
Okay, so
because
it's something,
I just want it out there. I'm like, if this is something you can't handle, that's going to be a problem because I have no intentions of quitting anytime soon.
because I'm sure there's guys that can't handle it, right?
Yeah, but what's unfortunate is that, like any situation, you don't really know if you can handle a situation until you're in it.
Sure.
So that's what's unfortunate. And that's why I'm like single right now is because I've had a lot of boyfriends that are like, yeah, I'm totally, it's your job. Like I get it. But with time,
They get jealous.
yeah, they get jealous and they get like, which seems perfectly normal. And so my mom's always like, my counselor says that you won't find a good man until you're done stripping. And I'm like, well, fuck you and your counselor, mom.
Thanks,
Like-
Mom.
What does your family, what does your family think of?
So they're Mormon, but, well, like, you know, my sister, obviously, who's dancing is a Mormon, but the rest of them are mostly Mormon. My dad was super sweet. I love to tell this really quick story.
Oh,
which
sure.
is
Please do.
My mom found my SOB license, which is a sexually oriented business license that you have to get to be a dancer. And she found it in my car. And then she told my dad. And then me and my dad had to go do something for my car where we were in the car together and we were alone. And he was like, your mother told me where you're working and what you're doing. And I was like, okay. And he was like, and I just want you to know that I love you and I just want you to be happy. And that was it. That's all he said. And I was like, like,
That's cool.
it was so cool. And like my mom at first was really, really upset about it and has talked a ton of shit. But then she even came into the club last year. She's come in a couple times now.
No kidding.
She came in with me once and then she came in when I had the charity party. She came in and hung out for like 2 hours to the point that I was like, go.
Was that hard
are
for
you
you?
still here?
Was that hard though to have your mom there?
Not at first, but after a while, I was like, I can't dance normal. I'm trying to be sensual here.
Yeah, you don't want
And
your mom
for my mom,
watching.
I'm
It's
like just trying to do like pole tricks and stuff. But
Was she throwing tens out there, 20?
she tipped a lot. Yeah, she tipped me like I think she put like 100 on my stage. But it was for charity, so she was
Oh,
stoked
okay,
to be
okay.
there and to do stuff. So, but she seemed to have a good time. you know, for her, I think she said something like, wow, these girls are so young, which like is true. When I see really young girls dancing, like even 18-year-old and up clubs, I'm like, she's so young. I feel very weird now. And so she's like, oh, the girls are so young. And she's like, oh, but you're all so beautiful. And wow, you guys are so talented. And it was just sweet. So they're still Mormon, but they came around.
What about you, Steph?
Well, so my older sister started dancing before I did. And I think initially when she started dancing, she was planning on trying to keep it a secret from my mom. And then I'm not sure exactly what it is that she told my mom, but when she told my mom, she was depressed, like wouldn't get out of bed for a couple weeks. But I mean, it was out in the open. So I think when I started dancing, it wasn't as big of a shock. So I have 5 sisters. And so 2 more of my sisters eventually started dancing as well. So I think that like at this point, my mom is like very like, not that she wants us to be strippers, but she's very okay with us being strippers. And I think that she sees how this job has benefited us in a positive way.
Yeah.
So I don't think that she has as many hard feelings towards it as she did initially. And my mom has also come into the club.
Yeah, I've seen your mom a couple
times, and
I've seen your mom at the club. Yeah, she's sweet.
So
what advice would you give? Let's say we have a listener right there, like, I want to get into this industry. I want to start stripping. What advice would you give them?
This is like, so I have an Instagram, Molly the Stripper.
Okay. So go follow that. Go follow.
Yes, go follow Molly the Stripper on Instagram. But I get that question all the time. And I used to really like take the time to really like interact with them and give them all the information I could. But it's really hard because the truth is it's just fucking scary. And you just have to fucking take the plunge. And there's really no way around that. You're going to fail at some aspects of it. It's just like anything. So my advice to them, a couple of things I would say is and not all dancers are this way. I think a lot of dancers at trails are like this. But one of my biggest things is I'm like, I don't think you should hustle dudes and be shitty and scandalous. I think that's terrible for business. I think it's terrible for your club. Yeah. So that's one of the first advices I would give them. Don't fuck over your coworkers. Don't fuck over the customers. And be yourself. Like, don't worry about trying to dumb yourself down or I have to look a certain way because this is how the other girls look. Like, just be your best self you can. Continue to like improve on your dancing and whatever the things are that make you happy. And like that will make you successful in any line of work that you're in. So that's some of my spiel about what I would say. And to slow down. Slow down. Because all new strippers, I don't know what it is, but I think it's nerves. I think it's all this.
It's all the adrenaline.
All the adrenaline that's coming out every single time that they dance. And they're so fast. And I'm like, just slow. What you think is too slow is just right. Just slow down.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Steph?
Well, so I said earlier, I'm the dancer manager at Trails. So I hire all of the new dancers that we get at the club. So I think talking to girls, just my advice is just do it. Because like Molly said, it's really fucking scary. But again, I think that the scariest part of it is doing it. Yeah. Like getting yourself to start doing it. And once you do it, I feel like it's not as scary as you thought it was. And the sooner you do it, like the happier you'll be that you've done it. Like I like hear so many girls say like, I wish I would have done this sooner. I wish I would have done this sooner.
I do. I wish I had started 10 years before I did.
Yeah. And yeah.
Is there any kind of training? Like, okay, say someone like me, if I wanted to get into it, I would really suck.
No, you'd probably be great. I've seen you.
No, but like I'm very clumsy and I'm very uncomfortable and awkward just in everyday situations. So like, what would someone do to prepare themselves? You know, like you say, just go do it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, is there steps?
No, I would definitely suggest some pole dancing classes, but specifically at most of the clubs now, they have exotic dancing, which is very different than a lot of the other pole classes. So seek out the actual, at the pole studios, the exotic dancing, or sometimes it's called black light dancing. And that will teach you a lot of the basics of what you would need to know about what to do on stage.
Yeah, because I feel like stripping and dancing are two completely different things. Like the way that you move your body like feels kind of counterintuitive. And that's not something that you're going to learn how to do the first day. It's not something that anybody can teach you really either. Like the only way to do it is just like
You kind of
feel
have to
your
find
body.
it inside yourself.
Watch
Yeah.
a lot of
Makes sense.
videos, watch a lot of other girls, start to internalize that when you start to move your body. Like, I liked what she did. I liked how that looked. I'm going to try doing that now.
Do you guys ever like record yourselves and analyze it later and say, "Oh, I like how I do this."
My
I like
whole
how I do
Instagram
that."
is like videos
Oh,
of
that's
me
true. Yeah,
dancing.
yeah.
And there's a lot of stinkers that didn't make the cut. And there's a lot of stinkers I posted because I was like, I'm a fucking human being. Like, not all my videos are going to be tip top great.
I
Like,
love
some
that.
of them
I
are
love
just,
that.
some of them are just like, I wanted to post something. And I kind of wanted you to see that, like, I fail
Yeah.
all the time.
I'm kind of nervous that some of the things that I do on stage that I think are really cool, if I were to record myself and see myself from a different angle, that they might look really stupid.
But that's true about anything. Like, you could take
Yeah.
your picture of yourself from a terrible angle and be like, oh, I looked terrible that day. But really, you looked beautiful all day. You just got a shitty angle. Like,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. But I'm just like, I don't know. It's something I feel like I like knowing inside myself that it looks good. And so I'm just kind of a little
Like you're cool with that. You're like, I
Yeah.
feel good. I'm walking away,
yeah.
which is great.
I know you've never taken. I just realized that I've never seen a video of you dancing.
Yeah.
Just once,
Just like the promotional videos.
just the
that
one
we've done.
promotional, and it was amazing. So
Are you on Instagram too, Steph?
I am. My Instagram is Steph with 2 H's and Steph with 2 H's Mercedes. Steph Mercedes. Sorry.
Okay. Let's. We need to switch gears a little bit to Salt Lake City. We have a few Salt Lake City questions that we ask everybody that comes through here, and we have to ask the strippers, right? We have to ask the if we all have family and friends that come to Salt Lake, right? We have like a little tour we give them, areas of town, a building, a hike, camping, whatever. Do you have one or two things that you like to show people in Salt Lake? I'll let each of you take a turn.
I really like to bring people to trails just because I like people to see what the club is all about and like how it's so different here than it is anywhere else. And the quality of girls that we have here is so much higher than it is anywhere else. But trails aside, I think probably the place that I like taking people to is Snowbird. It's
Okay.
just beautiful up there.
What do most people say about trails when they first come there, though? Do you know? I mean, do you pay attention to what they're saying?
So like when people come from out of town, I like often they'll ask for lap dances and they'll be like, "Oh,
you can't do
sucks, you can't do lap dances, but you guys are all so pretty and so cool." And so I feel like they might be a little bummed out at first, but like after being there for a minute, they really warm up to it.
yeah, and I think they start to enjoy that. Like, there isn't that pressure of a girl just coming at you from every angle, trying to get a lap dance out of you. That you can just drink and hang out and tip when you want. I think a lot of people are like, oh, wow, I like this. I don't usually like strip clubs, but I like this, you know?
It's like low pressure for everyone.
Yeah, because as a dancer, when I've tried to dance out of state, like, I'm like, I don't have that in me to hustle that hard, like, and to compete with these other girls and like get constantly rejected. And I mean, there is some rejection at trails, I think, for me sometimes, where like either someone's not tipping me, like sitting at the stage, like arms crossed, looking like they're having the worst time ever. And
My
I'm
wife drugged me here.
It has to be so hard because it's like I would assume that you kind of feed off the energy of your clients.
Totally.
right?
I've said this
Being on
before,
stage
where
is hard.
there's nights I've made crazy money, but everybody was such a moody bitch that I was a moody bitch by the time I was done. And there's nights I didn't make as much, but like people were so enthusiastic that I just had the best time. I just was like, I love my job. My job is so great, you know, like, sorry, I digress. What was I?
Well, the question, I mean, we kind of sidetracked there, but if the tour, like Molly, where would you take people that are visiting?
I know it's terrible,
Utah?
but when people do come, I do love to take them to trails. But part of it is because it just feels like home away from home for us. Like even when we're not working, we tend to linger there because it's like, oh, it's where all my friends are, and you know, and I like to show off. I'm like, I know those girls; they're all my friends. Like, and so probably trails. What else? You said Snowbird. Is that where Cliff Spa is? I do love Cliff Spa. I'd probably
Take them up there.
take him to Cliff Spa because that's gorgeous.
That's what Bea Voce
it's a
said,
pool
too.
up in the mountains. Yeah,
We need to go there.
it's gorgeous. Also, when I had a friend from England come, I took him on like an off-roading trip up through. It was years ago, but it was up through up north, like Brigham.
Okay.
And I would suggest that take like an off-roading trip up in the mountains because that's just gorgeous. And like people who aren't from here sometimes haven't had those kinds of experiences, and they're really, really beautiful. And we forget that we're so lucky to have that.
What about favorite local eating spots, right? We have one or two favorite places we like to eat at. I don't know if there's one or two recommendations each of you want to throw out.
So I'm not fancy, and I really like Crown Burger.
No, not Crown Burger's great.
I think Crown Burger's great. It's not in other states really that I know of.
No, I think it's just a Utah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Crown Burger. I mean, there's some few other but every time I go to a fancy place, I'm like, this was not worth it. Like,
Yeah. My most recent obsession has been Bruges waffles.
Okay.
But yeah, I never knew how much I liked Belgian waffles until
I haven't been there. I want
it's
to go.
so good.
They're just down, I know there's one in Sugar House and there's one down by like Pioneer Park.
Yeah.
300,
Right across the street.
300 and 300, I think, right down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. But is there anything you would change about Utah or Salt Lake City if you could, if you became the mayor or the governor for the day, right?
We could sell wine and liquor on Sundays.
There you
Right.
go. I like that. Okay, you're hired, right?
Yeah.
You're the next governor of Utah.
Well, I mean, I'd probably change about the whole country. I'd probably just legalize everything. That's like my opinion is I'm like,
Yeah.
let people, unless they're hurting someone or driving, like
Yeah.
let people do whatever they want. Like,
Treat us like adults, right?
yeah.
And it definitely creates a more healthy atmosphere.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't create a black market and
Exactly.
more dangerous things.
Yeah, and
that
then
are
there's more-
underground.
It's taxable income now. And now there's more resources for people who are abusing and are in addiction. And
Yeah.
that's a whole other
They
thing.
don't have
But
to be
like,
afraid to seek help. At that
exactly.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like
So those are, liquor laws, drug laws. I mean, I'm trying to think if I was the mayor, but I'm like, how much power do they even have? I don't know.
Let's say you had the power to
Depends
change.
on how crooked you are.
Well, listen, I mean, I've had a heck of a time talking. I know we just skimmed the surface and we barely got into the life of a stripper, all of that and whatnot. And I always tell people, let's just come back through and we'll catch up, but to at least get the basics today. Is there anything that you were hoping though that we would talk about that we didn't talk about? Or even you, Chrissy, was there something you were hoping
I
we'd
actually
bring
had
up?
a question. I've noticed, Molly, that you're a very big advocate online for the Rape Recovery Center of Utah.
Yeah.
And you're actually donating proceeds from some of the things that you've created and are selling
Yeah.
to them. I just wanted to hear a little bit about,
So
your
I did an
journey that
event
way.
last year where the girls, we all donated, and I had like a GoFundMe and stuff. It was like my birthday thing. And I found out even about them because I went to one of their events and thought it was really cool. And then I was looking for a charity and no charities would work with me because I was promoting a party at a strip club. And that was like really disheartening to me.
wow.
And I mentioned it to them and they were like, yeah, of course. And I was like, and I'd already liked them and been interested in their, what they do. And so we did that. We raised a lot of money. That was really felt amazing. And then I made a little book that I still sell, but I haven't finished my website. It's kind of been backburnered, but I finished a book and I do donate half the proceeds of the book to the Rape Recovery Center. And I also recently did the 40-hour training at the Rape Recovery Center so that I could be a volunteer, which means I can do hospital response or the 24-hour crisis line. But right now I'm just doing tabling because I'm too scared to do those other things. Tabling is just where you go to events and let people know what the services are. But it is interesting because people come up to me and want to share their stories with me. And that's nice because I've had 40 hours of training to know how to
how to respond.
I'm prepared
appropriately.
when people come up and do want to confide those things in me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm here. I believe you. These are some services that are free, completely free to you to use if you or someone you love has been assaulted, give them some information. And so, yeah, that's something I've really enjoyed doing. And, I think the next one we're going to do, we're thinking about, can I say? Mm-hmm. We're thinking about doing a charity event maybe next month for Pride, Utah Pride
at
Foundation.
Trails?
At Trails.
Very cool.
For my calendar party kind of type. Well, not calendar. I'm not in the calendar. My poster party. I have a poster of me. And I'll have it for a month. And so we're kind of planning that. There's been, I don't know, some stuff going on. And so in my personal life and other things but we are going to make it happen. But I still want to, I don't know. It's been hard to decide, but I wanted to try to maybe do another charity this year, but I am still working with them and they are amazing. And I just can't say enough nice things about the Rape Recovery Center of Utah. They're really, really great.
That's awesome.
Let's connection. So I know like Trails has a Facebook page, which people can follow, I guess. And
Who uses Facebook?
Do you guys have Facebook pages that people can connect?
I have
with
one.
you?
Molly Mason
Okay.
is my name, but I rarely check it.
You rarely check it or do it, but Instagram's your best bet,
Instagram,
Molly.
if you want to contact me about anything, questions about the club, I often answer questions or
Okay.
whatever. Yeah, Molly the stripper on Instagram. And yeah, it's the best way to contact me.
Yeah, I have a Facebook as well, Steph Utah.
Okay.
And then Charles also has an Instagram page. It's
Okay.
Trails SLC. And I check that pretty regularly.
Okay.
So
And I'll put all those links at iamsaltlake.com with this episode as well, so people can go there and check it out. Chrissy has a final question she throws out at our people, or the guests that come through here.
I do, and I'd love one from each of you. One response from each of you. If you could leave our listeners with a motto or piece of life advice, what would you tell them?
just be proud of yourself. Be proud of who you are and what you are. And yeah.
I would probably just say a lot of what Steph said, which is like, but also like work on being someone you can be proud of, like educating yourself, being the best version of yourself that you can be so that you can be proud of yourself and you can feel good about yourself. And yeah, I'd love to think of something else, but
No, that works.
that works.
I think that's a really important message that we all really need to hear. So
coming from a stripper.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Let's
Thank
catch
you,
up down the
guys.
road, visit Trails, say hello to you, say that they heard,
Come see us.
and let them know you heard them on I Am Salt Lake, right? How cool would that be, right there in there,
Yeah.
throwing $10 bills, $20 bills, and I heard you on I Am Salt Lake.
I could probably work something out if you mention that you heard us on the podcast that
Yeah.
will give you cover for free.
Oh,
free
there
entry.
you go. Hey, there we go. I like it.
just tell them I Am Salt Lake sent you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Many thanks again to Steph and Molly for joining us on this episode. All of the links that we mentioned in this conversation can be found with this episode show notes right on our website at iamsaltlake.com/401. Yes, that's for episode 401.
Support for I Am Salt Lake comes from KRCL 90.9, amplifying community voices since 1979. This listener-supported music discovery station covers everything from reggae and punk rock to local grassroots activism. Listen today at 90.9 FM or online at krcl.org.
Hey, that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to show your support for this podcast by supporting our show sponsors, KRCL, Market Source Real Estate, and CBD Medic. We'll have all the links for all of them right on our website under the notes for this episode, which you can find at iamsaltlake.com. And while you're on the website, dig through some of those back episodes. I'm sure there's one or two that you haven't listened to yet.
And remember, you can always support us non-monetarily by leaving us a review in Apple Podcasts or on our Facebook page. You can share your favorite episode on social media or just tell some coworkers.
You have a great week. Make sure to get out and enjoy the city. Support local whenever possible, and we're going to see you next week on the next episode of the podcast.
And good night, Grammy.